You're listening to a live performance of the song Satao of French jazz pianist Adrien Brandeis' debut album Euphoria. Now, critics are calling him a rising star in the jazz world, and in fact, he won the 2018 Letter One Rising Star Jazz Award, and he joins me now in the studio. Adrien, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi.
You released your debut album, here it is, Euphoria. This was in 2017. You were just 25 at the time. Music critics have said it's a very mature, impressive album for your young age. Where does that come from? Do you think you're like an old soul?
I don't know. I started to play piano with ragtime music at the age of 13, and with a private teacher. And just after, at the age of 18, I studied the conservatory to learn jazz music and Latin music, like the album. And since the age of 18, I learned jazz. I tried to compose in this style, combine jazz music and Latin music.
And it's all here on this debut album. So 8 tracks. Your compositions are very rich and airy. They're mixing tradition and modernity. At times they're explosive and energetic. At others they're more delicate, almost nostalgic. Why did you decide to call your first album Euphoria?
Euphoria because the first style of music I played was rock and roll music, and I try to get this style in jazz. I like when music is on fire. It's euphoria. It's like a sport. And Latin music, I think Latin music is in the same style of rock and roll. It's an energetic music, and
it's very explosive.
Yeah, and
it's spicy.
Live performance is very spicy. Yes, people dance. It's a big party, and I think euphoria. It's the good terms to resume the music I want to write.
Euphoria is actually the name of a track on your album as well. We're going to listen to an extract from that spicy track right now. Now, there is so much energy in your music there. You recorded this album with a quintet. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you're playing with on this album?
Yeah, I play with friends of the school. I meet them at Nice, at the Conservatory of Nice. There is Joachim Putaro on saxophone, Philippe Siminato on percussion, on the recording Ludovic Guevarch on drums, Guillaume Leclerc on bass. And they are great musicians, and it's my friends. So.
And did you compose with them, or?
No, I composed the album separately during 1 year, and after I call these musicians and I say, okay, we have to play this, try to play this.
And how much was it improvised? Did you get together for like jam sessions and improvise, or?
At the first, yes, it was a little difficult to find the good sound, but we have tried to play this 1 year before the recording. After this, we was ready to record. But I play this music with other people. And it's a challenge to find another sound with other people.
So it's kind of your sound as well. And what artists inspire you? I definitely hear some Chick Corea in there. We were talking about that spicy Latin sound. Where did that come from?
I don't know. First, when I discovered Michel Camilo, a Latin jazz pianist, I fall in love immediately with this style to combine jazz and Latin jazz. And I think I write Latin music because I discovered this pianist, but I like other pianists like Chick Corea. It's a more jazz pianist, but he has a Spanish influence and Latin music influence. So, and this and the link between rock and roll and Latin music, it's my sound. I think it's my sound to play
definitely coined your own sound there. Now, you moved from the south of France here to Paris in 2017. What is the jazz scene like here in Paris? You're considered one of the kind of rising stars, but are there other artists that you like to play with and that you admire?
In Paris, there are a lot of great artists. I meet a great percussionist like Orlando Poleo, Felix Toca, a bass Cuban player. The jazz scene in Paris is great. In Nice too, but Nice is a small town, and Paris is the capital. You can play. There is a lot of jazz club festival in Paris, and the award is a great chance to play in Europe. And
so this is the Rising Star Jazz Award, the letter one award that's very prestigious. And
and it's a chance to play your own music in a lot of jazz festivals. There are 7 jazz festivals, and I'm very proud to play in Nice Jazz Festival because it's like my hometown, and we're going to play in front of my friends, family, at home.
In Nice,
it will very fun.
And do you feel part of a young generation that's kind of changing the sound of jazz?
Yes, I think every year jazz change. Actually, there is a different sounds like 10 years ago. In Latin jazz, it's the same. A lot of jazz pianists try to play the piano differently. You have to learn the tradition, of course. But
and then change the tradition.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you're working on a new album. It's going to be very different from this one.
Yeah, the second album will be a more modern Latin jazz sound. In the first album, I play a lot of tradition, Latin music, Cuban music, and I would like to introduce more jazz music in the second album, like Gonzalo Rubalcaba sounds. I don't play like Rubalcaba, but it's my piano hero.
So maybe we can look forward to that next year?
I want to record this at the end of the year.
Okay.
And normally it will be available next year.
Well, we're looking forward to that. Now, in the meantime, we're going to move on to some other music news that's making headlines. Now, the soul legend Marvin Gaye would have turned 80 years old next month. Fans can celebrate his incredible career with a newly unearthed album from 1972 called You're the Man. Now, all the songs from the LP have been released in one form or another, but never as the album that Gaye originally intended. Now, 3 tracks off the album have been remixed by Salam Remy, the legendary producer who has worked with artists like the Fugees and Amy Winehouse. You're the Man was supposed to be the follow-up to What's Going On, one of the most powerful concept albums of all time, and a very political album as well. Kathy Clifford tells us more.
He's known for his sultry tones, which have seduced many a listener around the world. But Marvin Gaye's songs about war, poverty, and the hardships of racial discrimination have rooted his works into American musical history. In his landmark album, What's Going On, he explored the political upheaval of the late 1960s. Oil wasted on the oceans and upon our seas, fish full of mercury. The political overtones of the 1971 album came as a surprise to the American public. Up until then, his music had taken a much more light-hearted tone. His duets with Tammy Terrell had been hugely successful, and her death at the age of 24, as well as his own family difficulties, marked a turning point in Gaye's music.
He didn't go to Vietnam, but his brother Frankie did. The two of them talked a lot about the war, and he was extremely affected by it. So he experienced a political awakening.
It was in this mindset that the singer penned an ode to pacifism. 2 million albums were sold in 1971, though his foray into musical activism drew to a close after that one record. What's Going On, however, is today considered one of the greatest albums of the 20th century.
Finally, French rapper Abd Al-Malik is finally back with a vast project. He's releasing a new album. It's called Le Jeune Noir à l'épée, Volume 1, and this will be accompanied by a poetic book by the same name and a performance created with Salia Sanou, a choreographer from Burkina Faso. You can catch that at the Musée d'Orsay here in Paris in April. Now, we're going to leave you with a track off that album. It's called La Vida Negra. But before we go, I want to thank our guest, Adrien Brandeis. Thank you so much for being on the show. Do check out his debut album. It's called Euphoria, and you can also catch him on tour this summer. You'll be playing at the Leopolis Jazz Festival in Ukraine in June. Thank you so much. Best of luck with your new album. Now you can stay tuned to France 24. More news coming up right after this.
La Méditerranée qui Atlantique, les rêves de succès, c'est sûr, le paradis existe, qui se disent, vu que c'est l'enfer qu'ils quittent. C'est Black Orpheus, que dis-je, qui tombe dans les bras tendus d'Eurydice. C'est ce drôle de lotus, cette carotte banane qui fait délirer toutes les raisons, tout le réseau social.